A very good afternoon to the audience, and thank you for being so patient. We now start with Ocean to Ocean. Susmit Sen, founding member of fusion band Indian Ocean, released his solo debut album Depths of the Ocean in 2011. He has co-authored with Sahaba Imam Ocean to Ocean, a memoir. We have him in conversation with Sathya Saran, who is best known for editing Femina for 12 years, is the author of a book of short stories titled The Dark Side, a collection of editorials called From Me to You, a biography of Guru Dutt titled 10 Years with Guru Dutt, Abrar Alvi's Journey, the musical world of S.T. Burman, Sun Mere Bandhu Re. Without further ado, we start the session. Over to Sathya Saran.
Hello. Yeah. Can we also, the other mic is not yet on. And if we can have our voices on our monitors, that'll be nice.
It needs a magic hand. Welcome all of you, and welcome Susmit.
Oh, thank you.
We are here to discuss two books. One is of a very alive and kicking and strumming personality, Susmit. His book, Ocean to Ocean, is just released. It's not a biography, it's a memoir. Right. Because he says a biography is too big a word for him. And anyway, he's too young to be doing a biography. The other book, which is my book, Sun Mere Bandhu Re, is about a man who died many years ago. I incidentally specialize in writing about dead people because they can't come back and slap me in the face and say, that's not what I wanted you to say. We're going to talk first about you, Susmit. What I liked about your book is that it's very easily written. It's like he's talking to you. I mean, if he stood up here to tell his story, he would say it exactly like in the book. There's nothing intimidating about the book.
And it's because I can't write.
No, but you can definitely speak. And the best part of it is that every chapter has a learning. I mean, there is a certain humility, a self-depreciatory humor in it. Tell me why you chose to add that little bit of wisdom at the end in every chapter.
Well, it was not conscious. I mean, whatever came to me naturally, I have written that in the book. And all I have tried to do is be as honest as possible. And that's the most difficult thing to do. And also, in the process of writing, I realized that how difficult it is to write, and therefore my respect for all writers has gone up in a huge way. And when I was writing this particular book, I also realized that when you have to write about yourself, it's a huge task. Because after a while, how much can you talk about yourself? There came a stage where I started hating myself, So it just, whatever things that I wanted to talk about, not this that 160 pages can encapsulate a person's journey for more than 50 years. So I've done what I could.
No, but what really comes through is your coming face to face with yourself, of who you are, what you stand for, the fact that you will not play something someone else has composed or has been played before, the fact that you are uncompromising in quality, the fact that you decided to form a new band because you felt the old one was stagnating. Now, these are things that come through in the book. How did this come to you consciously, or was this something that evolved as you went around talking about yourself?
Okay, the last bit first. I didn't think that my last band was stagnating. Only thing, I went in a different direction. I'm sure Indian Ocean has a lot of future, and they will continue performing. As far as not wanting to play anybody else's compositions, I realized that music is a is a form of expression. It's a language. And if I do not play my own compositions, I am actually expressing somebody else's emotions. So till the time I could play my compositions, I thought that I would not be doing justice. And that's exactly what I keep telling all the musicians, you know, do your own stuff, because that's exactly where your emotions are going to come through.
But talking of how you created your compositions, I see a lot of influences. There's folk, there is Western music, there's Russian music as an influence. Tell us a little about the Russian influence.
It's not just the Russian influence. Russian influence came first because my father, he used to travel a lot. And so he used to travel a lot in the European countries and also Russia. He used to go to Russia very often. So he got me some albums, especially of the balalaika. And I was probably in mid-school or something when I heard the balalaika. And I do not know how many hundreds of times I played that LP. And I... So that's where I was introduced to, for the first time, music which was not from India and which was not from the West. So that caught my attention, and that made me explore as much as possible where all we can get really authentic music, because this English hegemony has made us lose out on a lot of things in the cultural and art world, which needs to be exposed, and it has got immense depth. So one has to move out of this English hegemony and go into the realms. I mean, the English hegemony has done a lot of things in the music scene. Like whatever they do not understand, they bring it into the world music category. And world music category, let's say Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, is in the world music category, and his form of music is probably starts from before the Western civilization. So how can that be categorized as a generic genre called world music? So there is a lot more into any kind of art form, be it painting, be it cinema, be it music, dance forms. So this is something which we need to actually break the barriers and go out and search for these expressions. And there are some much, much more in-depth expression than what we have ever heard.
You also write that Salil Chowdhury, some of the film greats in music, Salil Chowdhury, R.D. Burman, S.D. Burman, were also people who you admired and who in some way maybe, you know, contributed to your understanding and interpretation.
Yes, definitely yes. And I am delighted to see this book on S.D. Burman, because a lot of the music, because when I was growing up, one of the most favorite LPs that I heard was because of my father. He loved S.D. Burman and all Bengali songs, much before he came to Bollywood. And that's why I was so amazed to see the book that you have written. And I was going through the book, and some amazing facts that I did not know of came out. And well, we'll talk about it probably a little later.
Yes,
And
we don't want to divert just now.
right. And Salil Chowdhury probably has been the greatest influence as far as musical compositions are concerned. I think he's one of the finest composers in the world ever. And unfortunately, the rest of the country has heard most of his Bollywood compositions, but his repertoire started much before that in IPTA, IPTA songs. And he has written and composed and recorded songs which are unbelievable. Unfortunately, you know, the dialects are such, if you translate them and you sing it in some other language, it does not have that kind of effect. But the way he could break out of the basic norms of music, you know, change the beat patterns within a composition, change the scales within the same compositions, even the root note. You know, you'll suddenly see that he's jumped to some other root note and it does not jar. And that's the most beautiful part of a great composer. a great, great composer. So these are the people who have really influenced me.
And I think you've done that yourself. You started with one tal, moved on into another in some of your songs.
Yeah, that I probably am a very impatient person when it comes to music. Cannot continue with the same tune time and again, as the verse chorus format normally gives you that particular perspective. You know, you have a tune, and you have a chorus, you have a verse, and you keep repeating them with different lyrics, and you have a song. But as far as the musical component is concerned, for me, it becomes very boring. So that comes into my music also.
I'm going to ask you one more question on music, and then we are going into a little bit into non-musical areas.
Sure.
One is that you have made a statement saying everything you play, mean it. Play as if you mean it. I think it's a wonderful statement which kind of symbolizes your work. But how does it translate when you're composing?
It first came into my playing because when it comes to playing, I remember another person of the same age. When I was in college, I had gone to Delhi School of Music, and I happened to hear him play, and I was really, really mesmerized by what he was doing in the Western classical format. And he just told me one thing, and which stayed with me, that, Susmit, whatever you do, try and mean each and every note that you play, no matter how fast or slow you're playing. So even if you're going at a breakneck speed, you have to mean each and every note. And that has remained with me. And in the same way, when I compose, I realize that it's not just to look. Music is a very simple thing. There are just 12 notes, unfortunately. We probably wanted many more notes than just 12. And there are these beat patterns and then harmonies. So there's beat pattern, there are 12 notes through which you can build melodies. And if you play more than one note at a time, you have a harmony there. So just these three things. And within that, you have to basically develop compositions. And therefore, when a composition is not just playing around with notes on a particular beat pattern, it has to mean something. It has to take the emotions to a different level. And that's where you have to mean each and every line that you compose. And one has to be a bit meticulous, but over time, it does not seem to be that difficult.
I'm going to ask a rather naive question, because I've never composed music. So when you compose music, do you go over and over it again? Do you revise? How does it happen?
Some of the compositions come just like that. Like one of my earliest compositions, Melancholic Ecstasy or Torrent, or some of the numbers also in the new album. By the way, it's something that is not very clear to all of you, is this book is not just a book. It has the latest album of mine with my new band.
Which you were listening a little to. You were listening to a preview.
Yes, yes. So it has a CD in it with my new album. With Susmit Sen Chronicles, that's the new band. And
you were talking about revising while you were composing.
Yes, so some compositions just come as a whole. I wake up, I've woken up in the morning and I picked up the guitar and I played a complete composition. And then what probably I might have had to do was to cut it down, because those compositions were really large. It could have been played for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And in this format, probably it was not very acceptable. And therefore, I had to cut it short, but I still could not cut it short as other popular genres come up with three-minute compositions, 4-minute compositions. So my compositions normally are at least 7, 8 minutes. They go on to probably sometimes 13, 14, 15 minutes. So that's what how I normally go about compositions. Otherwise, sometimes, when you get a particular lovely tune, and then you sit down and develop it at the most natural way, so that, if you move from one part of the composition to the other, and you've changed probably the scale or the beat pattern, it should not sound jarring. Okay, that's the main thing, and it should not get away from the mood that you want to create.
That's important. The mood is the most
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you to talk about something that might inspire a lot of young musicians who may be in the audience. That at a point in your life when you were at the threshold of having to look after a family, you decided to stop working and dedicate your life to creating music and performing it. How did you make it happen? How did you make it work?
I did not decide to stop working. I decided to work in a different space.
Okay. I stand corrected.
So, because I remember I had got a job and I was getting paid very well. This was in 1989. And after a while, I realized that I was getting so used to earning so much so easily that if I ever want to get into music later on, I may not be able to do that. So that was one thing that was playing in my mind. And finally, when I heard that Namrata, my wife, was pregnant with twins, I realized that if once they are born, I'll never be able to break out of that particular treadmill, yes. And I had to take the decision and take a plunge. And it was not easy because when I gave up the job, it was a complicated pregnancy. A lot of my earnings had gone into that. And then finally I remembered that I realized that there was hardly any money for the delivery. But just about a month before, I got a job and I did some television spots. And when I got the money, I went straight to the hospital and deposited it there. So thereon, things became kind of, work started coming in.
And there's a very cute story about your stint with HMV, how you used to scout for talent.
Right.
Do you want to share that with the audience?
Okay, you're talking about the... Okay. This is there in the book also. I had gone to one of my dealers, and in Delhi there is a place called Palika Bazaar, which is completely air-conditioned, and you go underground and see lots of shops. So I had gone to this dealer of mine, and suddenly I heard some music coming to my ears, and I could not understand the words, because it was in Tamil, and but the music was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I asked my dealer, do you have this particular music? And he said no. So I followed the music, went to the shop that was playing it, and I'm not a person who collects music and buys cassettes and so on. Those days there were no CDs. So I picked up that cassette, very happy, and I go back to my office. I reach the office and I see my vice president marketing. I was working with HMB, was sitting there. And the moment he saw me, he said, hey, Susmit, come here. You are a musician. What kind of music do you think we should be releasing and producing? So I immediately took out that particular cassette and played it for him. And it played for just about half a minute or a minute. He looked at the jacket. I said, oh, this guy, some new guy called Rahman. This album was coming to us for some 10 or 15,000 rupees. But we are into bigger things, we did not take that. We bought Roop Ki Rani Choro Ka Raja for 3 crores. So, that's exactly what music companies do to music, And it's funny. It's really funny. And that's probably the reason that I chose HarperCollins to release my album this time. And there's a reason behind it. I can tell you this. If you go to a music company, CDs do not sell. And they say that, okay, we'll sell it digitally for your satisfaction. We will come out with some CDs, probably about 200, 300, or 500 CDs. And we'll see where it goes. And digitally, how much they are, is getting downloaded, you do not know. So you never get to know exactly what the figure is. And digitally now, in the social media, anybody can release any album. So when Harper came to me for an autobiography, which I said that not autobiography, it should be by memoir. And I realized that books still sell. So the first print run will be about 5,000 copies, which is 10 times more than what any other music company would have given us. And secondly, what I realized that the sensibility towards music is far more in the literary circles and the you know the publishing houses than what the music companies have, because they just know how to earn money and they know how to produce the same thing time and again, thinking that if Michael Jackson has sold, then probably another somebody who comes in which is akin to Michael Jackson will sell. To some extent, they may be true, they may be correct, but they in turn kind of kill the creativity of a lot of musicians.
I think the audience, you will agree with me that it is lucky that you did not discover Rahman. Otherwise, he would be known as the discoverer of Rahman, and they'll forget his real music. It happens, you know. Things get misplaced along the way.
And there are many such stories.
Yes, they're all in the book. Okay, another question I want to ask you is that this is not related to exactly the career, but you have, in the process of talking about yourself, also talked about some very offbeat ideas of marriage. You have made a very strong statement, which I completely agree with, but many may not. Let's put it to the vote. Could you enlarge on that?
You know, there are various ways of looking at it. Marriage is something. Look, anything that has been given to us by our predecessors, you know, the society that we are living in, needs to be now challenged. You know, the dominant discourse that controls our lives is something which I have always questioned, and that is how I have grown up, and that is how I have produced my own music, because whatever I saw around me, I had to question it. So, you know, one is a very basic way of looking at marriage is, why do you have to sign on a piece of paper to say that you're in love with somebody and you want to be in a relationship for the rest of your life? That is definitely there. And secondly, we are actually, in my belief, we human beings are not monogamous in nature. So there is a possibility of liking more than one person. And this whole concept about jealousy, which is also brought down from generation to generation, is something which you have been taught to be jealous of, because, you know, that one person has to be just loyal to you only. Whereas in my case, I think, you know, if somebody else has to love somebody who I love, I think I should be much, much more happier and not be jealous of it. And there are other ways of looking at it. You know, if you look into the prehistoric times when marriage was not there and so on and so forth, we, because of our insecurities, we wanted to come together as groups to be able to grab and be, you know, and to survive. And I think it is time that we question these things and look beyond just a family and not form jurisdictions and boundaries around us with all that.
I don't know if the audience agrees. Do you? Okay, we'll come to your ideas later. Okay, before we go on, I do want to ask you about a chapter which holds with it a great poignancy about Ashim and the sense of loss that, you know, you have had so many members in your band, but when you lose one of them without warning, that sense of loss in this chapter is very deep. Do you want to talk about it just a bit?
Yeah, Ashim, actually, I knew him from much before when I formed Indian Ocean. And I think I was still in late school when I first met him. And we kind of formed a bond, and which continued over 30 years before he died. And that togetherness was definitely a big thing for me. And his loss is not just personal. It is a much greater loss than just him being with me for so many years. Because a voice like that, a personality like that, is never to be found again. So that is something which was, and he had such a charismatic voice that many a times on stage when I've played with him, and he would take an alap in Kandisa or in some other song, I always thought, why the hell am I on stage? I should have been there in the audience listening to him. So it was difficult, but we realized that the music has to continue. So we continued with the band, and well, life goes on, I guess.
One last question is about this wonderful episode about you guys making music in a train. I bring this up because it has a parallel with S.D. Burman, who also had a very similar experience. Tell the audience about that.
This was after the first, the recording of our first album. We had gone to HMV's studio, huge studio for the first time. We saw that kind of a studio. And we recorded the first album in 92. And this was December 92, and we were coming back. I think I remember the date. We started from there, either the 1st or the 2nd of January, and it was cold. And we had this first-class compartment, which was not AC'd. And we were really, really at the top of the world, finishing the first album recording. And after a while, we started singing, and the singing would not stop. And all of us, we were, one was playing the guitar, all the others were banging the walls of the compartment to create beat patterns and so on. And I kept thinking, after a while, probably we'll be thrown out of the train. So it continued at about 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a knock on the door, and we asked who it was, and the prompt came the answer. It was the TT. And we really thought that now this is the end of it, and our journey is going to stop right here. We opened the door, and the TT tells us, it has been my dream to be a musician throughout my life. Can I join you? And then he joined us, and we sang through the night. And for the first time in history, and probably the only time, the TT got us snacks and tea at every station.
15 minutes more. Okay, you'll have to start on this.
Yeah. I would like to now bring your attention to Sathya's book, and I was going through it. There are some amazing facts that have come out in that. S.D. Burman actually was instrumental in bringing in a lot of people who have created history in the music world, in Bollywood, primarily Bollywood. Like Sahil Ludhianvi was brought in by S.D. Burman. Gulzar came into Bollywood because of S.D. Burman. Kishore Kumar came into Bollywood because of S.D. Burman, and there are many more, which Sathya...
I think Geeta Dutt came into... Wow. He recognized her when she was 17 or 18 years old, gave her that song in Do Bhai, which is Mera Sundar Sapna Beet Gaya, and she never looked back after that. And then there was Raj Kapoor. He actually recorded a song by Raj Kapoor, and obviously Raj Kapoor sang in Mukesh type voice. Really? And but then he wanted to become a director. So SD actually says, I've lost that Kapoor boy. He could have been a good singer, but he has other dreams. And Asha Bhosle to an extent. Right. Because Asha was running vainly behind her sister, trying to catch up. Right. And when SD Burman had the tiff with Lata Mangeshkar, much publicized. He had a tiff with a
lot of people, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a tiff with, we'll come to that. When he had the tiff with Lata Mangeshkar, he said, okay, abhi ye nahi to wo sahi. And he kind of, Asha Bhosle says that he taught her how to breathe between, how to use her voice to bring emotion into her song, how to breathe between the lines, and how to get, and he gave her some of his best songs. He gave her some of his best duets with Kishore Kumar. Hemant Kumar was another person. He had sung one solo which had sunk like a stone. And SD had made him sing one duet, which was not so good because he said Hemant is too Bengali, his voice is a little too heavy, we have to make it lighter. And he worked on Hemant Kumar. He worked with him to get his accent cleaned up. His voice, he says, was like Bhagalpur silk. You know, I mean, but keep that heaviness in his voice. And he gave him some amazing numbers, Taxi Driver. Right. He gave him Pyasa.
Manna
Day, of course, was his guru's nephew. Yes. So Manna Day used to be in shorts listening to S.D. Burman, learning from his uncle. And became his assistant at one point. And he used to keep wondering, this man gives everybody a chance. He gives everyone a chance to sing, catches hold of unknown people and says, Galo, what about me? He knows I can sing, I have trained. And he kept wondering, and then one day S.D. Burman called him. And he says, Abhi fir se mujhe chanachur lane bolega, or he will say, go get chai for me. But he said, no, I've got a song for you. Because SD said, I am waiting for him to sing that one song which will launch him. He doesn't suit any of the heroes. He will sing a background number. And he sang Upar Gagan Vishal, and it became an instant hit.
Wow. And tell me one thing, I mean, you have, there are lots of these letters from S.D. Burman to his parents and parents to S.D. Burman and a lot of these things. Where did you get hold of them from?
No, they have, the book is in a strange format. It's not in a beginning, middle, end textbook kind of biography because I felt S.D. Burman is someone that even today children, young people sing. You know, they hum without knowing who has composed those songs. So I wanted the younger generation to read this biography. So I've written it in a semi-fictional format. It's all rooted in fact. So the letters are also cooked up.
Lovely. And but the letters are written in such a way, it almost seems that it's a translation from Bangla. And that's what his language used to be. And how did you manage to do that? Because, you know, to get that Bangla essence into a letter which you've written in English is a very difficult task.
Well, I think it's because I grew up in Calcutta and in Guwahati. And I grew up listening to Bengali. I know the cadences of Bangla. I know how people speak. I know how they speak English. My teachers were all mostly either Malayalis or Bengalis. So I can catch both cadence when I write. So I think that helped me. I mean, it was a conscious effort to write as a Bengali would think, to think as a Bengali would.
But it actually reads very, very natural. It reads as if he himself has had written those things. Those emotions have come out really well.
Should I also tell the audience a little about the funny parts of the book? The book is full of humor because S.D. Burman was unconsciously a humorous person. I mean, he was a prince who said, I don't want to be a prince. I will not look after this princely duties that my father wants to assign me. I will not study law. And like you, he said, I will only do music, which is brilliant for us. But at the same time, he never forgot he was a prince. He was an arrogant man. He was a stubborn man. He fought with everybody. He fought with Sahir. He fought with Shailendra. He fought with O.P. Ralhan.
Bimal Roy.
He fought with Bimal Roy. He fought with Bimal Roy over the silliest reasons. Because Bimal Roy he's fought with Shailendra. So they have managed to get Gulzar, who at that time was a car mechanic, and asked him to write a song. And Bimal, sorry? After the questions, okay. So Bimal Roy comes over and says, okay, we are going to explain the scene to you. So S.D. Burman is explaining the scene to Gulzar, saying, ye ladki hai Kalyani, she has fallen in love with this man. And she's going to sing. She goes out singing. Bimal Roy says, no, she doesn't go out, she sings in the house. So he says, why will she sing in the house? He says, because they are Vaishnavis, they sing in the house, they sing all the time, father and daughter sing together. He says, but he can't, S.D. Burman says, she can't sing a love song to her father. She's singing it to somebody else. And she can't sing in front of her father, I'm in love with you. So let her go out of the house. So Bimal Roy says, no, no, I have seen the scene inside the house. So S.D. Burman says, if it is inside, I am not composing. So Bimal Roy has to give in. So then Gulzar comes in and he creates that beautiful song, Mora Gora Angalele, because Kalyani is fair and it is a moonlit night. So she asks the night to hide her. So he fought with, you name it, anybody. But, and there are some sections which are in the form of a skit to create a certain diversity. And there is a story, should I share the story of Hari Prasad Chaurasia?
Please.
Well, you all know Hari Prasad ji. Do you? Yeah, thank God. So, and he today is, of course, the Krishna, living Krishna in India. But there was a time when he was working with All India Radio, just as you were working with HMV. And he used to play the flute, and he also used to be an accompanist to many music directors, including S.D. Burman. So one day he came while the rehearsal went on. All the accompanists were sitting here. S.D. was sitting here with his harmonium, and Hari Prasad ji comes in, very nervous because he's late. Then he goes and takes his place, and S.D. asks him in a very fatherly manner, "Have you eaten?" So Hariji says, no, I've come straight from All India Radio. Actually, his stomach is growling away. So from inside, his wife Meera hears this and sends out rasagullas, which he used to get from Calcutta, very precious, like gold, okay? Sends out a bowl full of rasagullas. And he says, cow. So all of the others say, no, we can't eat because after all, they are there to rehearse, not to eat rasagullas. But Hariji also says no, and then slowly reaches out and eats one. Then he eats another. I mean, rasagullas are like chips. You can't eat one. You have to eat many. And if you're hungry, you eat all of them. So he finished it off. And SD is watching his precious rasagullas disappearing. And at the end of it, it's over. They all go away. Next day, Hari is called for a recording. So SD Burman is with Lata Mangeshkar. He has finished her portion. And he says, you play, Hari, you play your solo, because Lata has to hear it. She has to blend her voice into it. So Hariji plays. And then SD turns to Lata and says, didn't he play beautifully, very sweetly? So Lata says, of course, he always plays sweetly. He says, no, yesterday he ate all my rasagullas. Therefore, he has to play sweetly today. So that was the kind of child he was. And this is written in a form of a skit. And also, because it takes the story forward, it makes it easier to read. And the format, therefore, keeps changing.
So anyways, I think we have come almost to the end of the session.
Yes, and what we are going to do is to take 3 questions from the audience, and then we are going to have Susmit play. He's got his guitar here, it's all wired up, and he's going to play. Questions? Anish?
Yep. No, somebody has to give him a mic.
Mic at the back, yeah.
Hi, can I take 2 of the 3 questions?
Please do.
So one question is to Susmit. Susmit, you mentioned that you find it limiting as a composer to play somebody else's compositions. Limiting as a performer to play somebody else's compositions. And you feel that you should play your own compositions and so should others. Do you feel when you're collaborating, when you invite other musicians to collaborate with you, either in your ensemble or as guest artists, do you feel that they are compromising in some ways, as you would be compromising when you're playing somebody else's compositions?
Okay, Anish. Firstly, I do not say that you feel restricted when you're playing somebody else's composition. You can always improvise and so on. My main thing is that if you are not playing your own compositions, you are not emoting your own emotions. So the reason is a little different from what you just said. And secondly, when you say that when other people come and play in my composition, look, the thing is that I would only ask a person to come and play in my composition if he feels. like playing in it and be able to emote in it. Right in the very beginning, when I was in college, I had developed some amount of skill. So a lot of these bands came to me to become the lead guitar player for all these bands. And my basic thing was that it was not just my composition. I said that either I'll play your compositions or my compositions. I do not want to do covers. I do not want to do copies of others. So I have no problems playing other people's compositions if it is being created at that point of time together. So that goes without saying.
All right. One quick question for Sathya. Sathya, do you find any compositional difference between SD's Bengali period and his Bollywood period?
Well, SD does say at some point that when he goes back to Calcutta, he used to go back every year to Calcutta during puja and to eat his winter fish, as he called it. He says he had the freedom to do what he wanted and not be dictated by the market. Because here he had song situation, he had characters, he had a story to follow, and therefore he had to compose a tune accordingly. So though he gave himself ultimate freedom and would not accept what others said, unless it was a honest criticism of his work, he still felt a little cloistered. So there is a difference, but a lot of his Bangla songs have been brought into Hindi. You've got Kala Pani, you've got other songs which he has brought from Bangla into Hindi and used beautifully, and they were absolutely #1 classics.
Excuse me, may I respectfully point out that the idea that man is not monogamous and therefore we should look at the institution of marriage is a false premise. Because when men are allowed to have sex freely with multiple women, they will be quite happy to do that and not settle down. Sooner or later, some of these women will get pregnant and will have children, and you'll have single parent families and problematic children. This is in fact what is going on in the West. The signed piece of paper is nothing stupid. It's binding on the man and woman to stay together and hold the family together. In terms of Indian background, one of the things of dharma is to hold the family together. So it is important. I would like to disagree. Sorry, it was not a question.
No, that's perfectly fine. Everybody has their own opinions, so I completely respect that.
I'm sure your wife is a very happy woman. She has no insecurities. Good for you. Any more questions? One more question before he starts singing, because that was not a question. Yes, right in front. Can the mic be brought here, please?
Excuse me.
Mike has to come here, right at the front.
This is for Susmit Sen. First of all, I would just like to say thank you to you. I don't remember if you remember me. I had seen you 2 years back when you had come to Bangalore, and I've never missed a live show of Indian Ocean. And after you moved apart from Indian Ocean and started your own band, there are a lot of people like me who've been waiting to see you live. So there are two guitarists whom I really follow in India and who have gone out of their band. One is Baiju Dharmajan, and I'm sure you've collaborated. And I've got the opportunity to see Baiju in Bangalore and other places, but haven't seen you after you've left Indian Ocean. So is it a part of the plan, or?
No, it is not part of the plan. Unfortunately, I stay in Delhi, and all the organizers, whoever want to get my band out here, it is much costlier than getting somebody from Kerala. So the fund aspect kind of restricts a lot of organizers to get a band all the way from Delhi. That is one of the main reasons. And I personally would love to come to Bangalore and perform here, and I hope that is going to happen soon, because there are quite a few talks which are on with quite a few people. So I'm hoping that I'll come with my band. Today I'll play a little bit, just probably a glimpse of some of my music after Indian Ocean. But I would love to come with my band to perform here, because this is one of the best crowds that I've seen any place in this world.
You must. We are waiting.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
So shall we have some music? Yes. Over to you.
I'll play a short piece, just a short piece, which will have a kind of glimpse of one of the numbers from the new album, and probably from the previous album, Depth of the Ocean. Hello? Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You want to? More? I don't know about whether anybody's given you any titles, but I'm going to call you the man with the eloquent guitar.
Okay, just because the occasion is basically the book release, and the one is Sathya's book on S.D. Burman, and Ocean to Ocean, which has the album in it. This piece that I'm going to play is another glimpse of a particular composition which is there in the album. So just because the band is not there, I'll just give you just a glimpse of a piece called Bonging On.
Thank you so much for that very, very
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you so
music.
much.
And I'd like to thank both the authors for a very, very insightful conversation, and again for the music. I would like to remind the audience that there is a book signing going on, so both the authors will be available behind the stage in the book signing area. And also that there is an event called Inquisition, which is a book quiz by Nexus Consulting, being conducted between 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the bookstore. Since this edition of BLF is dedicated to the memory of late Dr. U.R. Ananthamurthy, please do visit a photo exhibition of him in the cafeteria. Thank you all for being a wonderful audience. That's all for now.